Moving on, we get Room for One More, one of the shortest stories in the entire series, and yet it's probably one of my favorites. The dream sequences are random and probably unnecessary, but I like them because it shows us the fun-time animatronics, and I'll take that. The whole plot twist with the mini arenas, I honestly didn't see coming. The fact that they go inside of Stanley's mouth and basically turn him into a puffed-up balloon. It sounds crazy when I say it out loud, but in the story it's interesting, and I liked the story. And it didn't drag on too long. I feel like the other stories where most of the action happens at the end could have been a lot better if they'd been as short as Room for One More. It's short and sweet, and it even seems to take place maybe in the sister location. So, that's cool. I like this story. I think this story is an S tier. That's just my opinion, as I'm sure I'm saying for the severalth time. The new kid. No one talks about the new kid. This one has been forgotten. It's been lost to time. It's been forgotten, and that's a real shame because I liked this one. The first half is really slow, but at least it builds up the characters and does so pretty well. But the real interesting thing happens in the second half, where Kelsey, one of the characters, gets trapped in a spring-lock suit, Golden Freddy, and he gets murdered. And I honestly didn't see this coming. Even when Golden Freddy showed up, I figured he'd be haunted or something, and I thought that would be cool. I wasn't expecting to get to see, in pretty gruesome detail I might add, someone get spring-locked. I just wasn't really expecting that to happen, and I was delighted when it did, because I am a freak and I'm probably a psychopath. I don't think I'm a psychopath. I might be a psychopath. I think I'm a psychopath. This story is good, and it's a shame it's been forgotten. I say the first half is a bit slow, but I would still give this S tier. And of course, the plot twist in the end, with a different corpse in the Golden Freddy suit, still makes no sense, but it's interesting, and so I like it. Moving on to Epilogue 3, where we actually get the origins of the Stitch Wraith. We get to see Phineas, I guess, put it together and see it kill him. That's really all we get, but it's interesting, and it gives us a bit more of a piece into the backstory of this thing, and it tells us that Fetch is inside it, which is interesting, and kind of makes you think. This is A tier. It's not quite as good as the last one, in my opinion, but I like it, and it definitely raises some interesting questions. Next is Step Closer, which isn't as scary as much as it is sad. The fate Pete meets as he's hit head-on by a truck was kind of funny for some reason, because again, I'm a psychopath, but it's also really sad. And I think, while I would have liked Foxy in the story more, it's still a good story, and I think that, again, the whole psychological part of this, with the curse that's on Pete, was really interesting, and I enjoyed it. So I'll give just because of how sad it is. If it wasn't as sad as it is, it would be like a B or a C tier. But because it's so sad, I'm gonna give it an A. It's barely an A in my opinion, but it's an A. Next is Dance With Me, and I got so much hate for this before, but this thing is hot garbage. It is really bad. Ballora poses no threat. There's one scene where she scratches her nails on, I think, a window. And that's about it. Other than that, she spins. For the entire story, she spins around. And that is her entire presence in the story. And it's not even a scary spinning, like, oh, I'm gonna get you. Oh, I'm gonna get you. It is literally just spinning. And that makes me more mad than it reasonably should. It goes in D tier, not for Dance With Me, but for, dang guys, that's a bit of a bad story, in my humble opinion. Coming Home is a masterpiece. Coming Home isn't scary either. It's sad. I wouldn't say it's as sad as Step Closer, but I think I'm the only one who thinks that way. But it's sad, and it's interesting. The way that Susie leaves her home between seemingly midnight and early in the morning seems to directly parallel how the animatronics are haunted from midnight to 6 in the morning. Which is really interesting. It shows what happens maybe when the animatronics are not possessed. It shows what they do otherwise. They seem to be able to go back to their families and almost haunt them in a weird, twisted way. It's described very interestingly with Susie being able to smell emotions, almost. It's very weird, but I enjoy it a lot, and it's interesting to think about, and has some pretty big lore stuff. So this is also S tier. Epilogue 4. What was Epilogue 4 again? Oh, yeah, it's where Jake and Andrew meet, and then they accidentally kill a dude. This introduces us to Jake and Andrew, which is interesting. I kind of wish there was a bit more. It's really just them meeting each other and their first victim, and the hint that there's another person hitchhiking with them in this endoskeleton in the Stitch Wraith. But as it is, it's alright, and I think it's interesting. That's a B tier. It's not anything earth-shattering, it's not anything crazy, but I enjoyed it. Okay, where were we? Yes. Bunny Call. Everyone's favorite story. Okay, but without even joking, I love this story. It feels like FNAF, and with the most recent stories we've gotten after this that don't really feel all that much like FNAF, that's nice to see, and I really appreciate this story for it. It has a new villain, but it feels... I don't know, there's just something about it that feels very similar to FNAF 1 for me. For the main action of the story, Bob is trapped in one place with the animatronic on the outside, and he really can't go much anywhere. He can't escape, but he has to defend against this thing. He has that typical FNAF 1 vibe for me, and I love this story because of that. Some people think that he's supposed to be parallel to, like, William or something because his kids or whatever, and I think that that's just reaching a little bit too far, but I like the story for what it is, and that just seems to be a fun Fazbear Frights story. So, you know what? I'm gonna give this A tier. A for awesome. Next up is In the Flesh, and I know that I know everyone hates this story. Okay, I know that. I know it's not exactly the most popular kid on the block, but there is something about In the Flesh that I kind of appreciate. Oh, how can I say something nice about In the Flesh? The ending is a bit unique, I'll give it that. The idea of our main character becoming pregnant with a baby Springtrap is maybe a little bit out there, maybe a little bit on the wild side, but I think it, you know, it can be scary. Maybe not scary in the way they intended it to be scary. Maybe not as scary as some of the fan art that people have made about this concept. But it's probably the scariest story in the series. We'll give it C tier for cool. Alright, the Madden Room 1280. This story, I know so many people like it, but here's the thing. I think it went on, and hear me out, for just a little too long. There's a lot of interesting stuff in this story. It covers a lot of lore details, but like with some of the other stories in the series, I feel like they were just trying too hard to reach that page count, you know? To get that sweet, what is it, 80 pages? Don't know why I know that. It's a weird fact to just know. It's something like 85, 86, I don't know. But it feels like it just goes on for a bit too long. I feel like the killing attempts where they try and kill this man are interesting. They end interesting. Their ideas are interesting for killing this thing that they view as evil because he is evil. And I'll tell you, for the majority of the story, like, what was his name? Father, whatever his name is, the priest who visits William Afton in this hospital. I was kind of on his side for the majority of the story. I figured, you know what? I think this guy, whoever he is a good guy. I didn't think he was William. I thought, like, in the stories in the past, he was a William stand-in. He's supposed to represent William, but not quite be William. And I figured that maybe they were going to try and pull a twist here and have him actually be a good character. That's not true. He's still a serial killer psychopath. But I was of the mindset that maybe they'd make this a good William Afton stand-in for some reason. The story went on a bit too long, but I think that it has some really good parts, and it's such a good lore story. It's not exactly scary, but it's very interesting to talk about and to come to conclusions about. And while some stories focus on scary, some focus on sad, this one focuses on lore, which I think we definitely need, and I think it does it pretty well. So, that's the Madden Room 1280. I'm going to give it a B. B for bang! Is what happens at the end of the story when William Afton explodes Maybe we'll move it down to C. Epilogue 5. What was Epilogue 5? Hold on a minute. Oh, yeah, okay. It's basically setting up the big battle between Larson, Jake, Andrew, and William Afton. This is okay. I think for what it does, it sets up some really interesting stuff. I almost feel like the epilogues that have the big action aren't as good as the ones that set up the action. If you know what I'm saying. Like this one is setting up the big fight in the next 2 books between these characters and Afton's amalgamation. And I think that it actually kinda does it better than the actual battle itself that happens later. I think this sets it up better and hypes it up more than the actual battle. I think this is better than the epilogues that come after it. I honestly think so. It doesn't answer as many questions, it more sets up things, but I think it does it better, and I haven't realized that I thought this way until today, so nice. So we're gonna put this in a solid B tier as well. Moving on,